Hello and welcome to Painting with Rob Boss. Today we're going to be drawing a little flower vase with some tulips, focusing on using different types of line. I am Rob Boss. I am the cousin of another very famous and reputable painter. Unlike him though, I like to be a little bit loud. You're going to need a pencil, you're going to need some markers, you're going to need some colored pencils, and you're going to need a pen. You're also going to need a piece of paper. The paper I'm using today is 12 inches by 9 inches, but yours can vary slightly. You're just going to have to figure out how to fit everything on there. But if you have a paper that size, that'll be the best option. So round up your supplies, grab your age-appropriate beverages, nothing illegal. Let's get started.
You ain't. We're gonna draw, 'cause I'm laying down the law. We're gonna art. If you don't like it, smell a flower. 'Cause I'm not familiar with the power. Who's the boss? Who's the boss? Who's the boss? If you have a glass, it's painted with rubber.
Alright, so I started this off by drawing a little thumbnail sketch. I cut this little card so it has the same proportions as my paper here, but it's obviously smaller. And I just kind of sketched out the layout. I want to be able to fit everything onto the paper properly, so I did a little tiny quick sketch version of my project before I start. This is a really good first step to take, so it can help you from making mistakes. You can do it pretty quickly. I'm going to stick this guy up here. Alright, so our first step is going to be to sketch everything out, get it all laid out and planned. And the first thing we want to do is kind of plan out how our space is going to work. So, I've got here about halfway up the opening of the vase and the flowers coming out. I want to leave plenty of room for the flowers on the top and plenty of room for this flower on the bottom. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of just start by making a mark about halfway up the paper. It's not critical that this be perfectly halfway up. If you want to get real precise about it, you're welcome to measure, but that's really not necessarily necessary. You should be able to eyeball it. So here I'm going to mark that halfway point. So about here, I'm going to do kind of the top of the body of the vase. So I'm going to go ahead and draw that in. I want to leave room underneath for a flower running along the bottom here. I've got a little paper below that you can't see, but I'll adjust it in just a second, so we'll take a look at that. Alright, so I'm going to sketch in kind of a squished circular shape, kind of an oval. It's going to be the body of my vase. And then I'm going to have kind of a cone shape coming up top. Like that. Make a squished, foreshortened circle for the opening of the vase. I'm using the side of my pencil for sketching, at least starting out, and I like to do that because if I use the tip, it digs a little trench in the paper. It'd be difficult to completely erase that. But if I use the side, it's basically just rubbing the graphite onto the surface. It can be really easy to erase. You can see it even smears around a little bit when I touch it. So that can be a really nice method for kind of keeping your lines erasable. I'm going to make this a little bit wider because I've got lots of space both directions, and I think that'll make a fairly nice vase right there. So I'm going to draw my flower coming across here, and I'll adjust this just a little bit so you can see that. Alright, there we go. Flower coming across here, and I'm going to draw the petals. So I'm going to have kind of a shape coming off this way, just a curved line. And I'm going to curve back the other way. Kind of an almond shape. Same idea here. and curve back the other way. And then in the middle, I'm going to make kind of a top of a heart shape for that center petal right there. And then I'm going to add a leaf. Maybe make this overlap my vase just a little bit. That's also almost a kind of almond shape with kind of pointy ends. So there's my flower laying on the table here. I'm going to add in the back edge of my table. This will give it a little bit of depth of space here. So we're imagining this pot sitting on a table. Here's the back edge of the table, and there's wall back here. Got that all laid out nicely. Now I'm going to add 3 tulips in the vase here. I'm going to have one off to the left, just going up a little bit. I'm going to have one in the middle, coming up higher. Not that high, maybe. Oops. There we go. And one kind of over here. I like them to be kind of at 3 different levels, not necessarily totally symmetrical, a little off-centered, a little imbalanced, just like me. Alright, so I'm going to add a leaf to this one here. And I'm going to add another leaf to this one here. I'm going to leave this one just a stalk. And then I'll add my petals. So again, just kind of an almond shape here. Another almond shape here. And almost a little heart shape. Draw in some of these back petals right here. I hate to back pedal, but I'm going to add in those back petals. Come for the art and you stay for the hilarious jokes. Alright, so here I'm adding a couple more petals. Just really basically just those same almond shapes. Let me put a little divot right there, make that kind of heart-shaped petal. And then for the last one, same idea. Alright, I'm going to give you a little time to get that all sketched in. It doesn't have to be exactly like mine. There's a lot of room for leeway and creativity here. We're really just concentrating on those lines, which we haven't even started to lay in yet. So get it as close to this as you can, or as you want to, and we'll move on. You know, if it's not exactly like mine, that's good. Everybody's is different. That's an advantage in a lot of ways. So I'm going to give you a couple minutes to work on that, and then we'll get on to the next step. So let's review that, sped up a little bit.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to start by making a mark about halfway up the paper. It's not critical to just be perfectly halfway up. If you want to get real precise about it, you're welcome to measure, but that's really not necessary. You can give it eyeball. So here I'm going to mark that halfway. So, about here, I'm going to do kind of the top of the body of the face. I'm going to go ahead and draw that in. And leave room underneath for a flower right along the bottom here. And got a little paper below, you can see. But I'll adjust it in just a second. Alright, so I'm going to sketch in kind of a squished circular shape. An oval, maybe the body of my face, and then I'm going to have kind of a cone shape near the top. Squish or shorten circle for opening the base. I'm using the side of my pencil for sketching, at least starting out. I like to do that because I use the tip that digs a little trench in the paper. It's difficult to improve the erase that. If I use the side, basically just rubbing the graph around the surface, and you're really using the erase, you can see it around a little bit when I touch it. So that can be a really nice method for keeping the lines. I'm going to make it a little bit wider, put that out space in both directions, and I think that'll make a really nice circle. I'm going to draw my flower coming across here. Just a little bit so you can see that. Alright, there we go. Flower coming across here. And draw the petals. I'm going to kind of shift me this way, just curve line, and then curve back the other way. Like an almond shape. Same idea here. Curve back the other way. And then in the middle, I'm going to kind of top of a heart shape. Got the center petal right there. And then I'm going to loop. Maybe make this overlap my waist just a little bit. Which also almost an almond shape. There's my flower laying on the table here. I'm going to add in the back edge of my table. This will give it a little bit of depth of space here. So imagining this pot sitting on the table, here's the back edge of the table on this wall. Got that all laid out nicely. Now I'm going to add 3 tulips in the vase here. I'm going to have one off to the left, just ramp a little bit. I have one in the middle, and then higher, not that high maybe. Oops, there we go. And one kind of over here. They're going to be kind of 3 different levels, not necessarily totally symmetrical, a little off-centered, a little down. Just like me. Alright, so I'm going to add a leaf to this one here. And I'm going to add another leaf to this one here. I'm going to leave this one just to stop. Now I'll add my petals. So again, just kind of a almond shape here. Another almond shape here. hate to backpedal, but I'm gonna add in those back pedals. Come for the art and stay for the hilarious jokes. Alright, so here I'm adding a couple more pedals. Just really basically, just the same almond shapes. Let me put a little divot right there, with a kind of heart-shaped pedal. And then for the last one, same idea. Alright, I'm going to give you a little time to get that all sketched in. Doesn't have to be exactly like mine. There's a lot of room for leeway and creativity here. We're really just concentrating on those lines, which we haven't even started delaying yet. So get it as close to this as you can, or as you want to, and we'll move on. You know, if it's not exactly like mine, that's good. Everybody's is different. That's an advantage in a lot of ways. So I'm going to give you a couple minutes to work on that, and then we'll go on to the next step.
All right, let's move on to that next step. For the next step here, I'm going to be using my markers and trying to make some calligraphic lines. So I'm going to start with a green marker. I'm going to be doing the stems first. So you probably want a green marker, but you know, you can get creative with it. It doesn't have to be exactly the same colors as mine. I'm going to make this kind of thick at the beginning here. And then I'm going to taper it. These tulips really have pretty thick stems all the way up, but I'm going to take some artistic liberties. I'm going to try to make this thin near the tips, and then make it a little thicker in the middle, and thin it out at the tips again. And the tips, thicker here, and then thin it out. I'm going to try to make a line along the center line here. I'm going to try to start thick, and then go thin. Alright, same idea for these ones up here. I'll get back to them. But next I'm going to do the petals. You can do the petals whatever color you'd like. I think I'm going to do my petals with sort of an orange tip and then more red in the body of the petal. So I'm getting out an orange marker. I forgot to pull that one earlier. You can do whatever color tulips you want, whatever markers you have available to you. I'm going to start thin here, and then I'm going to try to get thinner towards the tip of the petal, just like that. Thin here, then thicker. Bam! Alright, powerful. Thin, thick. Oh, I messed that up a little bit. That's okay though. It's alright to have some mistakes in there. Same idea up here. Thin at the bottom, and thicken them up. Thin at the bottom, and thicken them up. You can see that my sketch is showing through. There's nothing wrong with that. Generally speaking, it's a good idea to sketch as light as possible, especially if you don't want things to show through like that. I sketch a little bit darker to make sure that you're able to see, but if I was drawing this on my own, I'd probably keep the sketch a little bit lighter than I am. So there'd be a little less of this showing through, unless I was specifically trying to make the pencil show through strongly. Right here and here. Same idea here. I'm going to speed this up a little bit. I'll give you a little more time to do this, so don't feel like you need to keep up with me. Just make sure you understand what you're going to have to do here. Just like that. Now I'm going to finish off those stems. Let's start thick and just get a little thinner as I get towards the end. Start thick, a little thinner at the point of the leaf. Nice and thin, gentle, just barely touching with that marker. Trying to get it so just the tip is touching. This goes up. Maybe loosen it up towards the end. Thick at the bottom, light and thin at the end. Thick at the bottom, light and thin at the end. Thick at the bottom, light and thin at the end. All right. Bring this one up and lighten it. All right. I also want to do a line around my vase here. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to have the light coming in from kind of above my left shoulder here. So it's kind of this direction. So I'm going to have kind of more shadow over here. So I'm going to actually thicken up the edge of this that's going to be in the shadow, and then make it thinner as I come into the light area. I can kind of emphasize the shadows a little bit more. Be a nice technique for adding a little bit of volume and depth. So I'm going to go real thick here, and light and thin here. There we go, fill that out. All right, so now we got a nice vase. We got our flowers set up. We got nice calligraphic lines. I'm just gonna add one more line over here. Where my table ends. There we go. All right, so now I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna do my cross contours. But first, we'll roll back through all of those calligraphic lines. We'll speed it up a little bit, but I'm gonna give you a little time to get those all laid down. So here we go. So I'm going to start my cross contours on my vase. So if I want to cover more area, I can use the flat side of my pencil like this. And what I want to do is just kind of curve my lines. I want to match the curve of this opening up here. It's a little off, that's okay though. We don't have to be perfect. I'm leaving a little bit of room between my stripes here. I'm going to add in some other colors as well. Then when I get down to the body here, I'm going to widen up those cross contours a little bit. Really just try to match the curvature of that vase. All right. Now I'm going to mix in some red. Just going to put nice red stripe in between each blue stripe here. And now I'm going to add some green. So you don't always have to do the flat side. You can also use the tip. That's going to give you a much finer line. But that can be really cool as well. But here we're going to mix them up. This should add some visual interest, have some variety happening. So these cross contours are really nice for kind of showing the volume of a form or its roundness, or making it look three-dimensional. You can also use these cross contours for shading purposes. So let's look at the inside of the vase here. Let's say I want to darken that. I'm actually going to get a purple here. I want to take a cooler color, maybe a purple or a blue. But if I wanted to color this in, if I actually follow the curve that vase would take, it gives it a little, just a little more of a curved feeling on the inside. It's not super dramatic, but if I'm going to color something in, I might as well have some reason to why I color things the way I do. So if I follow the curvature of that, it'll give it a little more of a curved feeling. Just a touch. All right, same idea. Oh, wait a second. I've got on my tulips. Tulip has kind of a ridge in the middle of the petal here. I'm going to add that in. I'm going to use a red for it because I'm going to make the inside of my tulips red. This is a little bit more of a pinky red, but that's okay. Right here. It's just kind of a ridge that goes along the middle of the petal. I'm going to add some of those in. All right. It's not dissimilar from what's going on with the leaves here where I got a little bit of separation. All right, so now I'm going to work my way in with some red here. I'm going to apply cross contours on my petals here. So the cross contours on the petals, there's a little bit of a cross contour feel to kind of the texture of the petal when you look at the flower. It kind of goes like this. So if I can add my cross contour lines like that, I think that's going to give us some nice results. Whoops, that one's going the wrong way. That's all right. Doesn't really matter a whole lot which way they're going as long as I follow the curve of that petal. We don't always have to color things in totally and completely. We can apply these cross contours or different textures and still get a nice effect. All right. Oops. Forgot to add that over here. Let's add that on. Look at the bottom and try to thin it out on top. There we go. There. Nice. All right. Okay, so there we go. All right. I'm gonna continue by adding a little bit of cross contours on the leaves. That's what I'm going to do next. So again, I've got this light coming in from over my left shoulder, so I'm going to make the right hand side of the leaves kind of lighter. Some light cross contours. And I'm going to make the other side darker. I think that adds a little bit of dimension to the leaves there. All right. And I'm also going to add some kind of cross contours on the table. I'm going to kind of make them all head towards right about here. So I'm going to have them kind of angled. So they're like rays coming out of a sun in the center of my page there, and that'll make it look a little more like the table's coming forward. I'm not going to worry about making it perfect, but I think if I kind of add a little bit of that, I'll give it a little bit more of a feel of dimension there. And then I'm going to do some design on the wall. So these are also maybe cross contour lines or maybe just kind of a design. Going to do some blue stripes back there. And maybe I'll do some green squiggles in between. Go crazy. Give them some wild wallpaper here. You can see, even though we're just using basic lines, keeping it nice and simple today, but using these different line types and really thinking about how to address the whole image, we get more interesting sort of drawing. So let's go ahead and run through that step one more time while I play some jams for you. So now I want to add in some shading because I need to add in some hatching and cross hatching with my pen. So I want to think about, got that light coming in from the left hand side, where that shadow is going to be. So I want to kind of think about what's called the terminator line, which is like a line where the shadow ends and the light spot begins. So this is also going to be kind of a cross contour, but it's going to be relative to where the light's coming from. A good way to think about shading is if your face was looking from where the light source is, all of the spots you could see, those are going to be in the light, and all the spots you wouldn't be able to see are going to be in the shadow. So I'm going to kind of add a little bit of shadow on here, and then I'm going to kind of bring that up, and then add a little bit of shadow around here, going down to the bottom. So I'm going to add a second kind of terminator line. So we've got a curved surface here. When we have a curved surface, the shadows don't end abruptly. They have a little bit of a transition. So I'm going to add a second terminator line here, just to the left of my first one, and then another one right here. So I'm going to have dark shadow over here and then medium shadow here. The way I'm going to do that is using hatching and cross-hatching. So hatching and cross-hatching are parallel lines or crossing lines. Hatching are parallel lines. Cross-hatching are crossing lines that go perpendicular, more or less. So I'm going to start by shading in the whole area using hatching, just like this. I want to try to keep the angle of my hatching consistent. You can also kind of curve your hatching. Use almost like cross contour lines, the same way you would use hatching, but use cross contour lines to shade. And that can give you really nice effects as well as showing some of the three-dimensionality. I think I'd like them to be a little tighter, so I'm going to add another line in between each one I've done so far. The dog has wandered into the studio and it's grunting at me. I don't know if you can hear him. It happens sometimes. I'm going to stay focused though. You know, these flowers, these cut flowers are an interesting thing because they're beautiful, but they don't last a long time. And it's a lot like life on this planet, you know. But being creative is really one of the unique things that you can do as a human being to celebrate and enjoy your life and add a little beauty to the world like these flowers do. You know what I mean? That's cool, right? Yeah. I'll never think of a flower pot the same way again. Alright, so I've got some nice hatching and cross-hatching there. Now, in addition to this shadow that's going to be on the pot, that's what we call an attached shadow, we're also going to have a cast shadow, and that's the shadow that comes off behind the pot here. So I'm going to kind of draw that shape. So I want to think about what kind of shadow is this pot going to cast. This is really important to kind of think about this and practice drawing these things. It's going to be kind of a round shadow, but it's going to be stretched out a little bit. And when it comes up onto the wall, it's maybe going to change course a little bit at the edge. And maybe come up like this. I'm kind of going almost like a stretched out number 3 here. Then up. And then a curved line over. I'll bring this back down, back here. And I'm going to add some flowers if I want to. Just going to kind of have that shadow taper off. I'm going to come in and do some cross-hatching in there as well. You see my hatching is not super duper neat. But if you want to, you can get real meticulous with it. It's up to you. I think I'm going to do something a little bit funky here. And right here, where I run in the shadow on the table, I'm going to hatch the other direction because I'm a maniac. I think that kind of has a nice effect of showing that transition from the table shadow onto the wall shadow. Alright, now next thing we're going to do, we're going to add a little shadow to some of these flowers. So I think we want to do kind of a shadow shape. Let's think about how this is going to work. Our shadow shape is going to go kind of straight. So this flower is maybe being held a little off the table, or the stem's a little off the table by the flower. And we got a shadow maybe comes under here. And let's not forget the leaf. So maybe our shadow looks like that. Just a little shadow under here. There we go. I'm going to put a little bit of shadow under this petal here, a little bit on the underside here. I'm going to do the same thing up top. So this petal's in front, so maybe there's a little shadow back behind it. Maybe there's a little shadow back behind this one. Maybe this one has a little shadow on this side. But really, especially if you're wanting to draw from the imagination, it's really important that you start thinking about where these shadows are and drawing them in, and you know, looking at them and analyzing what you got wrong, what you got right. But start practicing that, because if you don't take the step to practice things like this, you're never going to be able to do them. You have to make mistakes, unfortunately, to succeed, you know, like so many things in life. So I think I can call this pretty much done. You can go in and continue with more finishing touches if you want. There's lots of things we can still add in. We can do like some cross contours on the stems. I think that adds a nice dimension to it. You can add some more shadows. You can color your shadows in with a marker. I'm looking for the hatching and the cross hatching there, but there's no reason you can't add some color on top of that if you want to make the shadow a little bit darker. Your shadows don't necessarily need to be any particular color. You probably don't want to make them black, but if you want to use a purple or a blue, any kind of darkish cool color will work just fine. Alright, so I think I'm about ready to call that finished. So you can continue and add finishing touches to yours. You can make it your own. Then when you're done, you can sign it. And we're finished. Alright. Alright, I hope this gave you some new ideas about how to use different types of lines, how to make your line work a little more interesting and dynamic, and gives you a little inspiration for your own projects in the future. Alright, let's speed up that shading portion and run through that again. Then we'll be right finished up, I reckon. Alright, it's time for viewer mail. I have to admit I'm a little nonplussed because this is the first episode of the program. But apparently we have some mail. So I'm just going to go ahead and read that to you. Dear Robert, I'm going to stop you there, Skip. My name isn't Robert, it's Robin. Now, it's not Robin like the wussy bird. It's Robin like Batman's awesome sidekick. And not the Chris O'Donnell version. Not the Joseph Gordon-Levitt, alright? No disrespect to Joseph Gordon-Levitt, he's fine. But the Burt Ward version with the shorts and the powerful legs. Believe me, it's a little cold now, but if it warms up and I put on shorts like that, you're going to see my powerful legs. You're going to say, that dude is a Robin, Burt Ward style. Let's go on. Recent rumors have been circulating that you are secretly Danny Masterson trying to reignite his career after some career mistakes, trying to reboot the whole career here. I've heard these rumors, and I'm going to address them with one word. Ridiculous. Absolutely, 100%, completely ridiculous. I'm not. I'm Rob Vase. I'm the real deal. You can believe that. Alright, thank you. That was viewer mail. Thank you so much for joining me today. I had a great time. I don't know about you. I hope that you've learned how to use lines in a more dynamic and interesting way, improved your art skills, so you can go on and create beautiful things in the world just like these flowers. Alright, I'll see you next time on Painting with Rob Vase.
We're gonna paint, don't tell me that you ain't. We're gonna draw, cause I'm laying down the law. We're gonna art, if you don't like it, smell a flower, cause I'm not good with the powers of